But the much-anticipated ANC disciplinary hearing of its former president, Jacob Zuma, will be heard virtually today. The hearing was initially scheduled to take place in May, but was postponed due to security concerns. The ANC has charged Zuma with 2 counts of misconduct. He is accused of contravening the party's constitution after he publicly expressed his support for the MK party in December last year. Zuma was suspended from the ANC, but maintains that he's still a member of the organization. If he is found guilty, he will become the first ANC president in history to be expelled from the party for misconduct. Now, for analysis, we are now joined by political analyst Sandile Swana. Mr. Swana, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon on Daytime Update. I guess for now, nobody really knows if that disciplinary hearing has actually taken place. It was supposed to take place virtually at 10 o'clock this morning. Of course, we know that the MK party has said nope, they want it in person, physically done so. What's your reaction to the back and forth that's going on and how long this is taking?
Oh, thank you so much, Masa, and good afternoon to the viewers of Newzroom Afrika. You will know that Jacob Zuma uses the Stalingrad approach. He fights centimeter by centimeter and is engaging that type of strategy again against the ANC Disciplinary Committee. He has appointed, in accordance with the constitution of the ANC, Tony Yengeni to be his representative. So Tony Yengeni ideally would have contacted the ANC at 10 o'clock through the virtual platform and expressed the wishes of former President Jacob Zuma to appear in person, that the hearing must be reconstituted to be an in-person hearing. So certainly information is in the public domain that Tony Yengeni is now leading this.
Yeah, and before we even get to the choice of the person, because it is within the ANC's constitution that he has that representation, it doesn't matter who it may be, but we also know, of course, Mr. Yengeni's past with the ANC too. But before we even get there, speaking of the Stalingrad approach to, is it also one of the tactics to make sure that it's always last minute?
Yes, absolutely. It will always be last minute. So that the opponents don't have enough time to strategize and launch a counter move against you. So yes, it will always be last minute changes, last minute emergencies, last minute illnesses, all sorts of things like that.
And also going back to the representation, it being through Mr. Tony Yengeni, that has also been made public. That is the person who would be also communicating with the ANC SG right now regarding how this disciplinary hearing will take place. Do we then see it then playing out in the courts? Because that was what was warned by the former president, that should he not be granted his wish, then he'll have to take the matter to the courts.
Yes, if they do not grant his wish, Zuma, knowing Zuma, he is quite likely to take it to the courts. And then you may find that the 6 months that is sort of prescribed in the ANC constitution, from the day that you get your charges to the day that your case is finalized, they say it must be done within 6 months. And Zuma will run it right down to the wire and make them to go beyond that 6 months, one way or another. So it's going to be rough. And if you looked at the message that was sent out to the ANC, it lists sellouts, people like President Cyril Ramaphosa is a sellout, DNAs and so on, and the Freedom Front Plus. So it's actually adding to the charges that is charged with. So it shows total disdain and disrespect even for this disciplinary committee.
Yeah, and I think that kind of attitude was also displayed during the election season as well. Would you say that the ANC almost shot themselves in the foot by prolonging and postponing this disciplinary hearing as well? Because then it left room for other tactics to be used. yes, one might understand their reasoning to say that, you know, we can't deal with this right now. Let's focus on the elections. We're campaigning. The polls were already showing that they were going to take a beating, but I don't think they also anticipated the kind of beating they got. So their hands were full. Their plate was very full at that point. But be that as it may, did they shoot themselves in the foot by not tackling it then, nipping it in the bud?
The other side of that argument would be to ask whether their losses would not have been worse. Right now, Zuma is going to use this hearing, and it's predictable outcome. Certainly, I'm not a lawyer, but the predictable outcome of this, looking at the charges and his conduct, is an expulsion. So Zuma is going to prolong the hearing as a process of campaigning for 2026 to take more votes out of the ANC, and is quite capable of doing that. So if you took one option or another, for instance, and become hard on Zuma, you could have attracted even bigger sympathy votes in favor of Zuma. And the ANC might have decidedly, I mean, depending on the calculation you use, it was already at 39 point something. They might have ended up at 34 rather than the so-called 40 that they had. So this is one of those very, very tricky surgical maneuvers that the ANC has got to perform. This part, now that they've suffered the loss that they've suffered, they will try to expedite this and hopefully create some form of healing in the 20 months that will be remaining up to the elections, and minimize the further losses that they are going to incur, but there are going to be further losses.
Well, we will be keeping our eye on that one. Thank you so much for that analysis. But